much. We've been talking about this all morning. Today marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina made its second and then most destructive landfall in Louisiana. That powerful storm brought heavy downpours that triggered the catastrophic flooding in and around the city of New Orleans. 80% of the city was submerged.
Yeah, Katrina is one of the 5 deadliest hurricanes to ever strike the U.S. More than 1,800 people lost their lives. The storm caused over $100 billion in damages. And the storm surge caused the city's levees to fail, causing more than 200,000 displaced people to find refuge in Houston. The Astrodome became the epicenter of the response, where more than 27,000 people were housed. Overall, the city welcomed nearly 200,000 evacuees, and beyond the numbers, an entire generation is still living with the storm's impact. The children who survived.
They want people to think, oh no, everything is okay. These people are good, like they're strong. Look at how much they've overcome. It's for me to say when I'm resilient. It's for me to say what is resilient. It's not for you.
And you know, that clip comes from the documentary Katrina Babies. It was created back in 2022 by New Orleans filmmaker and Katrina survivor Edward Buckles Jr. The film captures how an entire generation of children who lived through the storm are still coping with its impact 2 decades later.
Okay, so here to talk more about that impact is the director himself, Edward Buckles Jr. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Edward, you were just 13 years old when Katrina hit. So talk to us about what you remember most about that time and how did it shape you personally?
Absolutely. What I remember most about Hurricane Katrina was not thinking that it was as serious as it was. You know, we were so used to false alarms every year during hurricane season where we would be told to evacuate, and you know we wouldn't have to, or either we'll just leave for maybe a day or two. But I remember whenever I evacuated to Lafayette, which is about 2 hours away from New Orleans, I remember us being enrolled in school out there, and I realized that this was not just the typical hurricane. And I was just uprooted at 13 years old, and my life was never the same after that.
Wow, Edward, thank you so much again for taking the time to be with us here this morning. You know, in the film, you talk about trauma, resilience, and healing. You know, what stood out to you as the most powerful thing you heard while making this documentary?
Absolutely. Whenever I first set out to make Katrina Babies, I did not think that most of the subjects in the film had never spoken about the actual topic, let alone, never been asked, simply, are you okay? So I thought that I was just telling a story about the kids who experienced Hurricane Katrina, but most of the children told me that it was their first time sitting down talking about this story whenever they sat down, for my interview. So that was the most shocking thing. And to be honest, I thought that this film would take about, 8 months to make. But once I realized that this was people's first time speaking about this, I knew that it would take longer, and it took about 8 years to make.
So I guess my question when I hear that is, when you did sit down with them and nobody had ever asked them that question before, what was the answer when you asked, are you okay?
I mean, most of them were trying to figure it out. Most of them literally were trying to, figure out if they were okay on the spot as they were doing the interviews. And, if you watch the film, you'll see like some of them processing, wait, am I okay? Because, it was about 18 years whenever this film came out. I started making it in 2024, and, we had just gone on with our everyday lives, right? And whenever, people, spoke about these topics, on camera, I think that was their first time ever even processing, wait, maybe something is not okay. And maybe I am still dealing with the, long-lasting impact of Hurricane Katrina.
Well, and I'm sure you can speak to that as well personally. So as we mark 20 years, how do you think Katrina continues to shape New Orleans today? This isn't something that the city has just moved on from.
Yeah, today we're 20 years, it's the 20-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and I think it's important to understand that, we have rebuilt in many ways, but I do think it's also important to, understand that we are still healing, and we are still, dealing with some of the mental impact and emotional impact of Hurricane Katrina, and it's important to address that and not just let that, go away just because we're 20 years away. But also, I think it's important, to understand that we are holding the city close to us because we have lost it before. So whenever you see us, celebrating our city and, celebrating the culture, that's us holding it really, really closely because we have lost it before and we never want to lose it again.
That's awesome. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years, but we all know that New Orleans is such a resilient city, vibrant, full of culture and life and history. And it's just great to see how far the city has come, 20 years later. Edward, thank you so much again for joining us and sharing your story. And of course, streaming now on KHOU 11 Plus, our special Hurricane Katrina 20 years later. We take a look back at our news coverage from the day of the storm to Houston's response, including those precious moments when separated loved ones reunited at the Astrodome. We'll be right back.